What's up guys, it's Unders, and in this video we're looking at the update to the Captain plugins from the guys over at Mixed In Key. Especially in this video we're looking at the Captain Chords plugin and the Captain Melody plugin, with a little bit of spice thrown in from the Captain Beat. These tools by Mixed In Key are really aimed at helping you break out of that mold, getting things like chord progressions and melodies down when you're stuck in a writer's block. I'd just like to thank the guys at Mixed In Key for sending out these to me and helping with creation of this video by sponsoring it today. So let's jump into Logic and dive into what we can do with these plugins.
Keep it real, I'm independent, I don't need no deal. I'm jaws on the beat, I got a flow that kills. Do my thing with a few G's, Lauren Hill.
So we've moved over into Logic, and just so we've got some drums rolling in the background, I've used the Captain Beat plugin just with a default drum and bass pattern and a default kit, which is called the 7 Grand kit, and that just sounds like this. So let's start off with the Captain Chords plugin. When we first load it in, it's going to ask us to choose our key if we've got an idea of what we'd like, or we can press randomize and it's going to completely choose a random key for us. And it will give us our initial starting chord. When we press play, it plays back, even though there's nothing in Logic. It syncs with our playback. Now, if we wanted to very simply just add some other chords in, we can just press the add button here, and it's just going to keep duplicating the chords in for us. And we've just got this really simple chord run now. Now on each one, we can select it and choose a different chord from that scale. So we could quite simply move up the scale and just go for the E, F, and the G. And that should work for us every single time. And in each one here, we've got the different variations of that chord. For example, we finished up on the G minor here. We can have the G sus2 or even the G minor 7th as our finishing chord. That's just going to keep rolling over and over for us. If you don't like the sound, there's a whole batch of preset sounds built into Captain Chord. We can just press back here and get a default piano. Or if we click where it says sound presets, we've got a whole bunch of different types in here. Top it says instruments, we've got like guitar, keys, pads, all sorts in here. And they're all good stock sounds that could absolutely be used. Let's go with this flutter pad. If you can't find any sounds in there that you like, for example, though, we can go over to plugins, and Captain Chord can scan your plugin library and it will actually host some of your plugins. So you're able to put those in there. That's the ones it's currently scanned for myself. For now, we're just going to use this flutter pad. For plugins that it perhaps isn't able to host, there is the MIDI out option. Now in Logic, instead of MIDI out, we have a MIDI hosted effect. So over here, where it says MIDI effects in our channel, we would be able to add in our Captain Chords plugin just here, do it that way. If we want to adjust the octave that the chords are playing back in, it's up here in the top right hand corner. We could just dip that down so it's in the first octave. Notice how it applies to the chord selected and any following on from it. Complexity control will reduce the number of notes. So if we're using, for example, the G7 chord here, complexity at max has it using all 7 of the notes in the chord. However, complexity lets us restrict the number of notes being played. 4 seems to be optimal for something as simple as this. also record a rhythm into the chords. If we hit the record just over here, we have 3 ways to do it. We can tap, use the keyboard, or a MIDI controller. And when we press play by using the spacebar, we're able to tap in a rhythm we might like to record in. It doesn't matter what note we hit, we're purely going for a rhythm. It doesn't matter so much that I went completely off time at the end here, as we can quantize. We could quantize it to something like 1/8 notes, and it will now be rigidly in time for us. If we wanted to re-record what we've done, we simply hit space and we can take over it. Notice if we hold it down, it goes over and retains the same chord into the next bar. The spacing control, when we adjust it, we have some different things we can adjust. For example, we can have a smart legato, adjust the spacing that way. And this is a really simple way to make sure everything snaps right to the end. If you're using something like strings, it should give a bit of a wave off here as well. And we can strum the chords as well, so they seem ever so slightly played in. This makes it seem a bit more natural. And we can also swing it so it matches the rest of our track. These are currently on 1/8, which wouldn't do anything for us since we have no rhythm. If we've created a pattern that we like and want to use in other sounds, for example, let's open up something in Logic like Alchemy, we can very easily send the MIDI over to it from the Captain Chords plugin by simply dragging this region here and dropping it anywhere in Logic. Once we've done that, exactly the same MIDI data will now be playing in Alchemy. This lets us build up musical ideas with different sounds and patches very, very quickly. We could apply it directly to Alchemy as well by having it open in the MIDI effects patch here. Okay, so let's extend what we've already been working on by adding in the Captain Melody plugin to build a melody that's going to go with our chords and drums that we've already created. Because we've already been working in Captain Chords, we get this little pop-up at the bottom that says we can connect the two, so we can see the melody in context with the chords. It's really useful if we've already done a chord progression, so let's connect the two together. Across the top now, we can now see 4 different chords we used at the start. Now, there's a couple of ways that we can work in Captain Melody to add a melody in. The one that I found that I like the most is just tapping out a rhythm and then using the idea box to create the melody from the rhythm you've generated. Let's have a look at how we can do it that way. The first thing we need to do is go over to the Magic Record option. It's going to give us a prompt of how we can trigger this. We can trigger it a couple of ways with clicking MIDI or using our keyboard. So when we press play on the track now, we can tap a rhythm in using our keyboard. And it doesn't really matter what key we hit here. So the rhythm there was pretty off time and all over the place. Did that intentionally, just hitting random keys to show that we can then quantize what we've just worked on. There's a quantize option just here. When we tap it, we get a nice breakdown in slightly more detail to look at the steps. Let's reduce it down to 8 steps. What if we wanted to change that? We could simply click here and move one of the steps. Okay, so now it's obviously completely irrelevant to the chords we've got going on. It's just triggering D4 over and over and over. But we want to make that into its own melody, and this is where we're going to use an idea box. So over here on the top left, we can click idea, and when we bring the cursor over where the notes are, we get a plus icon to add an idea box. As you can see, it snaps kind of relative to the notes that we've got. Let's add the idea box in here, and we're going to drag it along just by using the handle on the right hand side to cover the whole section that we just put in here. And now we're going to choose update shape, and it's going to try and create a melody based on our chord progression. this worked really well, but let's put it up an octave, or we can just simply bring this down. It will bring it down the octave for us. Don't want is it to repeat that same melody twice. I want to make the melody over 8 bars, even though our chord progression repeats every 4. So what we'll do here, we can go to duplicate idea box. And as you can see, it's duplicated my melody. And we're now working on this one here that's got the kind of white haze over it and our tools just at the top here. Now, if we click on lanes, we can make some fine adjustments to the individual notes within the chords. We've got it as like our root 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. But we just have follow chords switched on. Now, I quite like the first 3 parts. I just want the last bar to change, so I'm just going to drag the idea box so it just covers the last bar and just hit update lanes and just get something else built in there. And before we check that out as our whole melody, we just need to drag this at the top here so it covers the full 8 bars for us. Something's gone awry at the end here, but we can freely move these notes around and still make our own decisions. So we still want the notes to run down like that. I think we'll just have a slightly longer note here, and we can just use Option and mouse wheel to zoom in as well. And there we have it, a melody that I essentially had no real input in apart from giving it a rhythm to work off. It's then used the notes of my chords to build out a rhythm. Much like before, if I wanted to now add that into my project or layer it up with different synth sounds, there's a couple of ways that we can do it. So inside Captain Melody, for example, we could load a plugin. So let's go into plugins and do select plugin. It's found Massive for us here. So Massive is now being hosted inside Captain Plugin. So when we play it back, it's actually going to be playing back Massive. Means we can load up any of the patches we've ever made. So I have a nice lead that I've used a few times here. Also, we can freely drag the MIDI out into a new track. So if I was to just click and drag this and drop it into a new section in Logic here, we want to import the tempo. It's going to automatically drop that melody in, and in my case, load up a piano. Incredibly quick and easy to build up legitimate ideas based on your initial chords using the melody plugin, and it's very, very quick to build up really musical and inspirational ideas using the plugins together in this way. So that was a deep dive into Captain Chords and Captain Melody, but I say deep dive, but really we're just scratching the surface on what these tools can do. I've showed you a couple of ways that I found them to be really useful, but there is a whole wealth more you can do with them. Thanks again to Mixed In Key for sponsoring the video today, and I hope the video was helpful for you guys, and I'll see you all on the next one.
Keep it real, I'm independent, I don't need no deal. I'm jaws on the beat, I got flow that kills. Do my ting with a few G's, Lauren Hill.